Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Willis, and this is your Macro Minute on deficit versus debt. If you're confused as to the difference between the federal deficit and the national debt, you're not alone. It's a concept that confuses many people, from the average citizen to the members of the media. But let's set the record straight and clear up any confusion in just a couple of minutes. A budget deficit is a condition that exists when government expenditures exceed government revenues in a fiscal year. The national debt is the accumulation of all budget deficits over time. You see, the biggest difference is that a budget deficit is an annual sum or balance, whereas the national debt is the total sum or balance over time of all budget deficits. When government expenditures exceed government revenues in a fiscal year, it creates a budget deficit, which means the government has to borrow money to fund its expenditures. This deficit adds to the national debt, which is owed to anyone who lends the government money to fund its deficit spending. If the government continues to accumulate budget deficits year after year, it adds to the national debt, which is owed back to lenders. When government revenues exceed government expenditures in a fiscal year, it creates a budget surplus, which means the government has more money than it needs to fund its expenditures. This surplus revenue can be used several ways, including providing tax refunds to consumers or making payments on the national debt. When surplus revenue is used to pay back anyone who lent the government money, it decreases the size of the national debt. If the government uses the surplus revenue to refund taxpayers, the national debt remains unchanged because the government isn't borrowing additional funds, but it isn't paying back the debt either. In essence, the opportunity cost of using surplus revenue to issue tax refunds is the chance to decrease the national debt. All nations borrow money, and national debt isn't unique to the United States. But the debt has grown and shrunk over time as a result of wars and financial crises and natural economic fluctuations. As of the end of 2017, the United States national debt is estimated to be around $20 trillion. That includes compounded interest that must be paid annually to lenders. Obviously, that's an incredible sum. But the US isn't broke. In fact, the United States has excellent credit because it pays back its annual obligations. However, the percentage of the debt we owe annually is growing compared to what we produce in real GDP output, meaning it's getting harder to pay back the debt. That means, unfortunately, sooner or later, the government is going to have to start paying down the principal of the national debt by significantly increasing revenues or dramatically cutting spending, which affects the public goods and services that government provides to its citizens. It also means it'll affect the disposable income that consumers have to spend. Either way, our utility and the standard of living will be affected. Thank you so much for watching. That's Deficit versus Debt, and this has been your Macro Minute.